Okay, this is shot with an 8mm film camera, so there's no sound. What you hear in the background is the projector as I was copying this onto a VHS tape. This is Johnston Atoll, one of the most isolated places in the world, located about 800 miles southwest of Hawaii, stationed there in the Coast Guard with 15 other guys on about a 7-acre island. Our purpose out there was to transmit navigational signals for commercial and military airlines and ships. As you can see, we spent a lot of time in the water with boats or swimming or scuba diving. Yeah, it's a good experience stationed out there for 1 full year. Here we're planing a mast for our 12-foot outrigger canoe. We're going to put a sail on it. Took a long piece of 4x4 and we're planing it round. Here's that little boat that we were painting there. The name of this boat was called the Willet Float. That was the name we gave it. And there's the outrigger canoe with the mast and sail on it. A couple of guys are looking for some fish to catch. They have one without the shirt has a fishing pole in his hand, and he's standing on a concrete block that holds guy wires for the 620-foot tall Loran C transmitting antenna. And here's Glenn Miyazono. Grew up in Maui, and in his teen years grew up in L.A. area. Let's see, here we're heading out on a fishing boat loaned to us by the Air Force. There's our 620-foot tall antenna. And here we are in the fishing boat. We're on the outside of the coral reef. And we're going after fish like tuna, wahoo, things like that. Oh, here's some flying fish I managed to capture on film. Somebody's reeling in a catch. What's funny is sometimes when that's an alua there, and sometimes when we reel in the catch, all we reel in is just the head of the fish. The rest, as the fish is caught, it thrashes around on the surface, and that attracts sharks, and the sharks attack the fish. And sometimes all we end up reeling in is just the head of the original fish we caught, and it's kind of funny. But you might see that coming up here. There's that's Johnston Island in the background there. There's a wahoo, kind of a small one. First fish I caught out there was a mahi-mahi. And all of the fish that we catch out here, good eating. Oh, this fish here was attacked by a shark. And all the guy reeled in was the tail of the fish was gone, and it was lost to a shark. The shark's attacking the fish on the end of the guy's line right now. That's pretty crazy. The shark feeding frenzy right there. Oh, this is in the white shirt is Greg Wells, our assistant cook, and the guy in the green shirt is our new commanding officer who we're about to initiate. I'm gonna throw him off the dock there. That's how we treat our commanding officers there in the Coast Guard. And there he goes. Greg Wells follows him. There go a couple other new guys. I had already been thrown in the water, so they did me first so I can get my camera and, videotape this. There's a little Boston Whaler boat, a little 40 horsepower Johnson on there. I think it would really scoot. Coming back from making a run over to the big island, Johnston Island, which is a half a mile wide and 2 miles long. There's our head cook. Can't remember his name though. He's in the galley there cleaning up after, a day's meal. And here's our mess deck. Pool table. Yeah. Here's an Air Force guy. We have this little pet dog, and this guy in the Air Force, the Air Force had a camera site on our island, and it was occupied by two people on nighttime watches. And you can see out of boredom, sometimes we'll build a kite out of newspaper and some sticks and get some string and run it up in the air. These sailboats here are called sunfish, pretty popular in the day, and we would take these sunfish out in 40 knot winds and 4-foot chop. And it was pretty crazy. Oh, this is up on the far end of the island that's unoccupied, where our transmitting antenna is. And that was a pillbox. During World War II, guys would sit in there with machine guns and point them out the windows and protect the island. And here we're playing volleyball. And in the background there you can see a tree. That was the only tree on our island, and it was a coconut tree. And ever since I was 4 years old, I've always hated coconuts. And they put me on an island with one tree, and it was a coconut tree. Here we are playing volleyball. The guy that looks like he's got long hair has just got his shirt wrapped around his head. It almost looks like he's got a ponytail or something. Oh, here we are. I had a waterproof camera case from my movie camera. So I took it aboard the outrigger canoe that we took or built, and you can see it close up here. And it runs pretty good. Got a paddle there out there on the rigging or on the trampoline there. There's the outrigger, just slicing through the water. Made of 2x4s and plywood and fiberglass and resin and 4x4 posts for the mast and rope, and for the sails we actually used canvas. So when the sails got wet, they were pretty heavy. It's kind of nice taking that thing out in 78 degree water and sailing off into the sunset. One day we took this outrigger canoe over to Johnston Atoll, and some of the Air Force guys thought we were from Polynesia, because in the Coast Guard a lot of us had beards. So we sailed it over to Johnston Atoll, and these Air Force guys came out and they brought their cameras with them and thought we were from, we'd been out at sea for a long time. We told them we were just the coasties on the other island over there. Yeah, it was pretty funny. We had one incident where we were sailing over towards Johnston Island, and the rudder had broke, and so we couldn't steer the boat, and we started drifting, and we're drifting away from the island, so we threw the anchor out, and then the anchor line breaks, and so we lost our anchor. Fortunately, it was just a piece of concrete that was on the end of a rope, and the rope broke, and so one of the guys I was with, there was two of us, and there were three of us all together in the boat, two other guys besides me, and one of the guys looks at the sky, looks up at the sky, and says, "What are you waiting for? The mast to break?" And then all of a sudden you hear this creaking sound go, "Ee!" And then snap. One of the guy wires for the mast had broke, and the mast comes crashing down. And apparently some of the Air Force guys on the Air Force Island saw that, and so they telephoned our island, Sand Island. And so Sand Island sent a couple of guys out in the Boston Whaler and towed us back. And that was pretty funny. You know, it was kind of embarrassing. Here we are in the Coast Guard and had to get rescued by the Coast Guard. Well, here's the room that I worked in. This is the signal generator room to transmit, that generates the signals that we transmit for commercial airlines and military airlines and ships, and for navigation purposes. I did a recording when I was stationed at the island, and it has my voice on there on the radio, so why don't we listen in on that, and you can hear me as I sounded back then.
Get you down so we don't have to give you any adjust later on. How about that? Roger, I understand. I'll insert your negative 1 Yes. 04 372. Why out? Roger. Brig, Johnston Island, French frigate.
Frigate Johnny, go ahead.
Johnston French frigate, Roger. Request you come negative 1.0 on 2 Lima 7.
French frigate, is this Charlie, negative 1.0, 2 Lima 7, over.
It's Charlie.
Roger, stand by. Frigate Shoals, this is Johnston Loran, over.
Johnston French frigate.
Roger, request to know how you see me on 2 Lima 7 at this time, over.
Roger, your sound tolerance.
Roger, thank you much. Kauai Loran Oscar 2, Kauai Loran Oscar 2. This is Johnston Loran, go ahead. Kauai Oscar 2, this is Johnston Loran, Roger, break. Honolulu Radio, this is Johnston Loran, be advised, Kauai Oscar 2 is trying to contact your unit, over. You follow Point Loran, this is Johnston Loran, over. You follow Point Loran, this is Johnston Loran. Request your cesium comparisons and Lima Papa Alphas for 0500 Zulu, over.
Loran, you follow Point. Our Lima Papa Alphas is a positive decimal 06. Our base comparator readings at this time is void, over.
You follow Point Loran, this is Johnston Loran, Roger, request your initials, over.
Johnson, you follow, initials Charlie, Romeo, Charlie. You follow out.
On the east end of the island is only our transmitter building and all these migrating birds. We have sooty terns, fairy terns, naughty terns, tropic birds, frigates, and shearwaters. And of all the types of birds we have, we did not have, red-footed boobies. And of all the types of birds we had out there, we did not have any albatross. There's a frigate bird. Nope, I'm sorry, I take that back. That's a sooty tern. There's a red-footed booby. There's an adult red-footed booby. There's a frigate bird on the left, and there's a baby frigate right there. Looks like a cotton ball with a big, huge beak on it. And there's the adult frigate bird. There's a couple of males showing off their big red pouch there, attracting the females. Birds out there are kind of interesting to watch. And when you're walking around out there fishing or just walking the shoreline, you get bombarded quite a bit, but you get used to it and you just stick your hand in the water, scoop up some salt water and wash it off. Kind of reminds me of Alfred Hitchcock's movie The Birds. Plenty of them out there. National Geographic came out and they said during the peak time there were 250,000 migrating birds on our little 7-acre island. And that building that you just passed there was the transmitter building at the base of the 600 foot tall antenna that transmits 500,000 watts of power. In the background there is the other end of our island, and on the left, that tall building on the left there is the Air Force camera site. It's kind of neat in there. They track satellites and missile launches that come out of Alaska, and they shoot them down south over the Pacific, and they track the satellites and they monitor the little objects that are roaming around in the sky, ours and our enemies. There's a bunch of sooty terns there. That previous bird was a shearwater. Just above and to the right of the head of the shearwater there, you can see a little egg there. Its colors match the coral landscape, or rocks and stuff. They're there. They're actually coral. There's no soil out there at all. It's all just ground up coral. In the far background you can see the big island, Johnston Island. Oh, this fella out there photographing the birds is his name is Tom Lake, and he was from Campbell. His hometown is Campbell, California. You can see my shadow. Even back in 1971, there's my shadow. Hello, shadow. That is so funny. Oh, there's the 600-foot antenna with the transmitter building at the base of it. There's a shearwater sitting on her eggs, or his eggs. Birds just basking in the sun in front of the transmitter building there. Yeah, this last footage of the birds here was shortly before I left the island, so there weren't as many. It's probably half or a third of the original population of birds, or the peak population. You see a little baby chick there. The male and female doing their courtship ritual dance, I guess you could call it. There's an egg in front of that shearwater there. I mean, sooty tern. Well, let's go diving. All right. Here's what I enjoyed doing most. I was a certified scuba diver. I was certified over at Johnston Atoll, or Johnston Island, I mean. And after I got my certification, I was diving 3 and 4 days a week for about 9 months straight, and it was pretty awesome. Beautiful coral reef, very clear water. Even did 2 night dives under a full moon. It was pretty awesome.